So, ladies and gentlemen, Reason has joined the Royal Rumble here. He has joined the Battle Royale. I'm gonna just call it Royal Rumble instead. Reason has responded to Joey Badass with the diss track, The Dead Apple. Now, for the people that don't understand what's happening or like where's all this coming from, a few months ago, towards the tail end of the Kendrick Lamar versus Drake beef, Joey Badass came out of nowhere with the song The Ruler's Back, where he took shots at the West Coast and said that basically that too many people were glazing the West Coast. A lot of people from the West Coast, they took offense to that. Many YouTubers from the West Coast, rappers from the West Coast, such as Daylight and Ray Vaughn, they put out diss tracks to Joey. CJ Fly, who's an affiliate of Joey, he put out a response to those guys. And then from there, not a whole lot happened really. You fast forward a few months to a few days ago now. You fast forward several months to like earlier this week, when on Red Bull's 1520 channel, where they put out ciphers, they put out a cipher between Joey Badass, Ab-Soul, and Big Sean. And in that cipher, Joey Badass took some more shots at Daylight and Ray Vaughn, mostly Daylight. He only really took a few jabs at Ray Vaughn, really. Like, it was so few that you almost could go without noticing it. And when he took those shots, Ray Vaughn responded, as he should. He has the right to. So he responded with the song Whole Era, which was it was a dope diss song. And also the cipher Joey was in was dope, and the Rulers. But all of the songs so far from everybody involved have been pretty dope. But Ray Vaughn responded with Whole Era, where he was going in. He went on the attack again, and he went off on Joey. And a day later, Joey responded with the song The Finals, which was him going in on Ray Vaughn, but also him calling out Kendrick again and saying, hey, if you need some competition, I'll be right here. But something that happened in Joey's diss track, The Finals, was there was a point, and I mentioned this in my video yesterday, there was a point where Joey said, hey, you about to be the next artist dropped, and I'ma be the reason. Now, I feel like that could easily go over many people's heads, because Reason was never that popular of an artist. But you know, I liked Reason as an artist. I remember I watched the whole era of him being signed and then eventually leaving TDE, so I immediately caught that punchline. Like, I'm sure many of you might have caught it as well. And when I heard it, I was like, okay, that's you know, that's a slick punchline, or a slick little, you know, stray that he kind of threw at Reason. But it did kind of catch me off guard, because I'm like, well, why did he just kind of threw a Reason like jab out there, which I thought was interesting. And so of course at that point, that gives Reason every response, every opportunity, or it gives him the justification to respond with his own track, which is what he did. He responded with a diss track called The Dead Apple. It's another dope song. Again, all the songs that have been involved so far, the songs in the cypher, they've all been dope so far. But in this song, The Dead Apple, Reason took aim at pretty much the entire New York region, to be honest with you. He just kind of used Joey as a proxy, but he still, you know, he took shots at New York as a whole, saying, hey, specifically Joey though, he said, hey, you sound very jealous, which is very true, you know. And then he also says, hey, y'all were basically the sacrificial lambs, you know. Basically, he didn't say this next thing, but I'm kind of paraphrasing. He kind of was saying y'all were more so the crash test dummy, just to practice how things are gonna go, and then we took it from here, which is what happened. Like, New York. And the thing about New Yorkers is that a lot of people don't understand if you're not from New York. I grew up in New York. I literally grew up there, so I know New York is a place where people do talk very slick. They do talk out of the side of their mouth a lot, which is why when I hear Joey make some of these comments, especially the Reason punchline that he had in his song The Finals, I'm not surprised that he did it, because there's a lot of New Yorkers that do that. They talk slick all the time, and people from other regions obviously don't really they don't take too well to that, like, you know. So, and another thing he mentioned was, hey, you know, the West Coast, he said we, but he was talking about the West Coast when he said we've been doing our thing, and meanwhile y'all was too busy bragging and y'all fell off. And he's right. New York, and this is again, as New Yorkers, as people from the East Coast, we are, as younger people, we are unfortunately living with the sins, or we're having to suffer for the sins of the previous generation of New Yorkers, because there were so many Gen X and baby boomer New Yorkers who during the early ages of hip hop were very arrogant, very disrespectful, talked out of the side of their mouth all the time when it was came to other parts of the country, like the South and like the West Coast, definitely the South though. And unfortunately, New York wasn't able to maintain that dominance. We all know what happened towards the early 2000s. They fell off. The South rose up, and it's been a wrap ever since. New York has never regained footing, and it never will, to be honest with you. And even Reason understands that, which is why he pointed out the fact that, hey, Joey, nobody's standing behind you. Like, he had that punchline where he said, hey, Colin Kaepernick, but nobody wants to stand behind Joey. I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically the punchline. And when I heard that, I was like, that's one of the main issues I had when it comes to Joey's approach with the whole situation. Is even in the cypher, he kept saying, well, I don't need help and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, you may feel like you don't need help, but at the end of the day, you're in a tough spot where you're essentially trying to take on an entire region of people who have no problem unifying all in the name of jumping somebody. Like, they have no problem unifying all in the name of jumping somebody. And that's what's low-key been happening to Joey, both when he released the Rulers back several months ago and right now over the past several days. Now, and this is not me trying to make him seem like a sympathetic figure, but this is just me saying what it is. And part of the reason Joey feels like he doesn't need anybody, I understand it, because, and this is something a lot of people who aren't from New York don't seem to understand, but New York, even some people from New York really don't get this. New York does not have a culture of collaboration. It does not have a culture of unification or unity, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't have that type of culture. New York, if you're from New York, you know I'm telling the truth. New York has a culture of every man for themselves. You're on your own. And there's an upside to that. There's pros to that. Like, you learn to become more sufficient and more hungry and more ambitious, and you're more prone to want to take certain risks to get to another level, because you know you're all you got, and you're trying to get somewhere. But of course, the cons to that is you're not really used to trying to really establish any real allies. You're just kind of doing your own thing. You're just a rogue ninja, or you're a lone wolf, whatever you want to call it. And that's kind of the space Joey's in, low key, even though he has his pro era crew. But outside of that, there's nobody, as you can see right now, so far at least, there hasn't been anybody from New York who's really gone out of their way to try to have Joey's back in this situation. And it's because New York does not have a culture of unity and collaboration. You even saw this with the downfall of New York hip hop in the early 2000s, where you have regions like the South and the West Coast where they go extra hard for their artists. They push their artists hard. They're on all the radio stations. The fans there locally go extra hard to support that artist. Like, it's a completely different vibe out there in these other parts of the country. But in New York, it's never been that case. New York is a place full of a lot of haters who talk out of the side of their mouth, who aren't really interested in collabing with people. And that kind of puts you in a spot where, if you do find yourself in a situation like Joey, where he's taking aim at the entire West Coast region, essentially, he keeps leaving a lot of opportunities for them to keep forming together to jump him. You know, they teaming up like Voltron or whatever, and it's a tough situation, but it is what it is. And Reason took more shots at New York when he said that the best rapper from New York is on a podcast. I'm not sure which rapper he's talking about. I have a theory. If my theory is correct, I disagree, because I don't think that person is the best rapper out of New York, but that's just me. He also did something I thought was disrespectful, which was he sampled the Ja Rule song, I'm From New York, one of the dopest songs in hip-hop history, and definitely one of the best New York anthems ever. And he sampled it, well, whoever his producer is, they sampled it, they put a dope West Coast bop to it, and gave it that West Coast bounce, and he started sliding on it. And it was very disappointing, not just for me being a artist myself and also being a lyricist myself. But it was also disappointing being somebody from New York and knowing that these people are 100% correct when they say that New York fell off, and many people in New York are jealous. And also, I understand that realistically, New York is never going to get footing back. It's never going to. Because again, New York does not have a culture of collaboration like these other regions in the country. Like, it just doesn't. And people will try to gaslight you and make you think that it does. They'll say, "Oh, well, what about Wu-Tang?" I'm like, you're bringing up exceptions to the rule. Like, you're not actually debunking the rule. You're just bringing up exceptions. I lived in New York my whole life. I am 1000% positive. It is not a place of collaboration. This and we got that, and all the stuff you see in the South and the West Coast. That's not a New York thing. New York is every man for themselves, and because of that, because of that, and because of the fact that they got too arrogant when they were at their peak, they put themselves in a bad spot where, one, nobody feels bad for them, and two, you're never gonna recover. New York hip hop's never coming back. It's never going to. It's never going to. Like, it's not. Like, the West Coast they've done a great job of maintaining their sound over the years while still updating it. Same thing with the South. New York abandoned their sound, which it is what it is. I'm not trying to beat the drum saying, "Oh my gosh, bring back New York hip hop. Let's restore the feeling." I'm not saying all that. Come on now. It's a wrap. It's 2025. It's cooked. Even as someone who grew up in New York myself, the music I
try to keep it East Coast, but I also try to stay up to date. But I'm not super focused on trying to make something that sounds, that really dusty basement boom bap sort of, you know what I mean? Like, it is what it is. I can rant for 20 minutes just on what went wrong with New York hip hop. But to get back to Reason, it was a dope diss track with a lot of punchlines where he said if somebody calls him out, he's gonna be like a phone that unlocks and slide. I'm like, all right, like, that was a dope punchline he threw in there. He also had a dope statement where he said, "Hey, if you wanna be on top, or if you wanna be one of the top ones, just go climb." I'm paraphrasing here, but what he said was, if you want the top spot, then climb it, or climb to go get it. Which makes sense, of course, as him responding to all the times Joey said that he wants to be on the top spot, playing on the word Top Dog Entertainment, or
playing on the word.
He also said that when TDE dropped him, or better yet, he said when it comes to him and Top Dog, him getting dropped or him not being on a label no more is his business and not Joey's. And again, he's right. And this was a bad move from Joey's side, because you took an unnecessary jab at another person from the West Coast. And it doesn't seem like you had much of a plan on what they'll do what you'll do if they respond, or maybe he does. I don't know. We'll see in the coming days or weeks. Let me know, were you impressed by Reason's response, and do you think it was foul for him to kind of take all these shots and rope New York into his disses towards Joey Badass?
And